June the 30th, 2024. Guys, I want to show you the newest numbers coming off the computers from the National Hurricane Center. Now notice this is for tomorrow on 01 right there. That's July the 1st. Here's what it's going to be, but here's the key part. Our maximum winds will be 125. Our gust will be 150 knots. Now, guys, 150 knots is 172.6 miles per hour. 125 knots, you're dealing with guys 144 mile per hour winds. That's the steady wind, and when you're dealing with that, you're again staying well above a hurricane or Category 4 because they start at 130. So we're going to be dealing. I don't know what you would call this, a Cat 6 or a Cat 7, but one thing that I do know is all this year we have talked about it, me and you and everyone that comes on this channel and comments, is that because of all the crazy weather we've been seeing and the fact that the oceans are overheated again for the second year in a row, this was going to be devastating. Now, no one had any idea how, but now we're going into the overheating of the planet and the era of the superstorms. Again, 172 miles per hour. Now, this is when it's coming in to the Windward Islands. All you guys, we're going to look at the map. It's not going to tell you that on the map. 172 mile per hour winds. Guys, nothing can really take that, and it's almost unprecedented. I think it really is unprecedented, especially this time of the year. But it'll be the first day of July. But again, we got records broken because it's a 4 today. First 4 ever in June. And there was only 5 3s in June. So that's what we're dealing with. Now, once it passes the Windward Islands, that's going to slow it down, but only to 145 knots. See that right there? That's later in the day, still in the first. 145 knots, you're dealing with 166 mile per hour top winds. At 120 knots, sustained winds, that's 138. So you're still, guys, at a Cat 4, even when it becomes weaker. Now, this continues to show it continue to weaken, 135 and 130, 120, 115. We will see. But it definitely looks like you guys up in Jamaica, you need to hold on. We got a differing paths from the CMC and the Navy model. We're going to take a look at all that. But here, this was the most important information in the video. 172.617 miles per hour. Now, guys, this is a wild look at the Atlantic. The sun is setting. Notice here, this is a very well-defined storm. We're going to look at it a little closer. I just wanted to look at the overall view. Here's the secondary storm right here, starting to get some outflow in it. More than likely, we'll see more about that in the morning. But this storm, that's a very well-defined eye. And, guys, if you're in the Windward Islands and you've got 172 mile per hour gusts coming at you, you've got to either be definitely hunkered down on the backside of that mountain or the backside of the island or getting out of there. Right now, this thing is not going to slow down. From where it's at right now, it's only going to accelerate to unprecedented levels. In other words, you may have never seen the destruction that's coming from the storm. It's lucky that they're saying it's going to slow down before it gets into the Gulf. We'll look at the spaghetti models on that because nobody needs this. It looks like the Windward Islands may take the hardest lick, but this storm has surprised everyone except you and I. We knew what was coming when it came off the coast, and we've been a day ahead on the forecast. Now, a quick look at the infrared starting in Africa. We continue to see strong storms coming off the coast, one after the other. This one's a little further north than the rest, and these are coming a little further south off the African coast this year, by the way. Usually they're not quite this far south of the Cabo Verde Islands. And here's your storm number 2 in the Atlantic. Here is the Demon. And this very large area hopefully will bring you guys in Mexico quite a bit of rain. Last time we saw these come in, I think it was Alberto, remember? You got rain all the way up through the Baja into Southern California and Arizona and New Mexico. Maybe that would help. Right now, guys, here in the southeast, all of us need to kind of pay attention to what we got swinging around right now. I'm going to take a look at the weather before we end this video. Right now, you guys, again, in the Windward Islands, you're dealing with a very dangerous situation. Now, guys, this is the closest look I can get on this infrared satellite to the Windward Islands that you see here. Notice more moisture is pulling through and out of Central America and South America into the Caribbean ahead of the storm. But this edge right here that you're starting to see emerge here in the last few frames, you're already more than likely starting to see the pickup in winds, and they're just going to continue all through the night, increasing one after the other. I hope they have evacuated most of these people in this area. Let's change this view slightly. Here's the system we've got that's coming out of the Bay of Campeche, headed west into Mexico. You can see your outer bands are starting to form and give you some moisture all the way through a large area in Mexico itself. Here's our storms, guys, coming through Mississippi and Louisiana, Alabama here. They're starting to intensify. It's like everything is sensing a lot of energy moving this way already. Here, it looks like the center of circulation is not quite on shore yet. It's hard to say, but I'm saying it's right in here. That means as long as it's got 1 foot in the water, it's going to continue to produce more moisture in these rain bands. Now, about 30 minutes ago, they updated this model, and what we're seeing is the Navy model is holding with the southern Louisiana strike, but the CMC is drifting further into Texas. See that? So what I would do is anticipate anywhere from the Texas coast, kind of like I said this morning, anywhere along the Gulf Coast, because we're still a few days out. It's going to be, from tomorrow will be 6 days. But we don't know for sure, but when these two start getting closer and closer together, we will get that average. Just remember, there's always a chance of a storm this large making a hard right turn when the outer bands connect with the land, because that's resistance, and then it will move the storm somewhat itself. Now, the main cone has not changed that much. Remember, we were looking at the center of it somewhere around the Yucatan. This is a 5 p.m. advisory, so it's 2 hours old. Winds 130 miles per hour, then pressure at 960. And we're talking about the storm here. It's a little closer than that now, 2 hours closer. And we're going to be well above Cat 5 winds when it comes there, guys, in the gusts. It's saying 140 miles an hour. As it comes through there, it will slow it down, and then slowing down to a Cat 3 all the way to Jamaica. And that may be what's slowing it down to that point. Remaining a Cat 2, and they're saying back to a tropical storm by the time the Yucatan starts tearing it apart. That's if the CMC model holds, where it's going to come through and come into Texas. But again, the Navy model has it shooting the gap and coming into Louisiana. We'll see when we get closer, but everyone in the Gulf be watching the storm. This thing could do something with high pressure jumping. It could jump Cuba and hit Florida before all this is over with. We've seen it happen too many times, but we know we have a very powerful storm on the way. Let's take a look at the Canadian model, guys. This is the one that has it drifting into Texas. Watch this. It skirts the Yucatan. And guys, if it were to hold this model, the Houston-Galveston area, which would be very bad because it's a big bay and it's very low, would take the northeast quadrant, the most powerful of the storm. Now, it's showing the second storm behind it, and we're kind of far out on that one. They haven't really got into details on it quite yet because they're watching the one in front. But this, again, you guys in Mexico must be praying on it, because the second storm could bring you a lot of moisture, and that would be, again, a blessing. I know it's going to be wet and flooded, but again, try to save as much of this as you can. It will become more valuable than gold or silver. Now, this is the Navy model, by the way, but I've stopped it on the 7th. We're going to play the whole thing through. And let me back it up. Right there, we're on the 6th. Now, where it's coming ashore, right in here, the northeast quadrant is going to come across New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, right up over us here in central Mississippi. That is not a good thing for New Orleans. The city of New Orleans, most people know it, but if you've never been there, it's below sea level. It's built into a bowl. That's why you saw the massive flooding and people on the rooftops during Katrina. They've been building more levees and more storm walls there and everything, but this is going to be something to deal with. Now, again, we're looking for an impact from here right now at the mouth of the Mississippi over to Galveston Bay as far as the worst part of the storm. But we can't take our eyes off of any of this. Let's play it forward and let it start over. And coming in right through there, here's North Mississippi up in the Delta at the end of this. That means there's going to be a lot of flooding here in the cropland and flooding along the Big Black, Mississippi River, and the tributaries of that. Look at that. Stopping here on the 8th. Now that's as far as the Mala goes out. But it looks like a pretty good rain event. Moving here, Arkansas, you're going to take, Tennessee, you're going to take the brunt of it. If it stays there, again, the northeast quadrant coming right up through the Memphis area. North Mississippi, heads up on this. Now let's take a look at the National Weather Service. And what you're seeing are gale warnings already up along from central Texas all the way down to the Mexican border here, Rio Grande. But all of this area is heat warnings and excessive heat warnings. So we'll get some break from that. But if you guys remember Katrina, it was very hot. It came through, knocked out power for days and days. And it was so humid after it came through that the heat was almost unbearable. Now in the northeast, you don't have any tornado warnings yet. You see a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings and watches through here. I would not doubt one may be popping out. You got red flag warnings here. You've got flash flood warnings here. And you've got, again, excessive heat warnings and high wind warnings throughout this area. But right here, we are dealing with some pretty rough heat. It got up to about 108 real feel today. Then we got some clouds. Got it down to about 103. It helped quite a bit, actually, but it's still very warm. Guys, we're watching this. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.